Gentlemen, another beautiful trade on another beautiful day. Now, I say beautiful day, right? But this week has been quite literally horrific. Anyway, let's break it down. We're on a 1 minute time frame. This was executed on a 1 minute time frame on Bitcoin. Let's look at the actual execution here. So I ended up making just north of $18,000 on this position. I went short at 66,287. I took my full profit at 65,927. So let's jump right back in here. Now, if I go to an hourly time frame, you'll immediately be able to see why I call this a horrific price action. So clearly, pretty much since Sunday here, so this entire week, we've been downtrending, right? But not just a typical downtrend, a very, very choppy one. And what I mean by that is we get, clear direction here, but then we get massive bullish candles here along the way, right? I mean, this is literally a market for liquidations. I can guarantee you so many traders have lost so much money this week, okay? Now, I immediately noticed a few patterns, okay? Because even though this was, extremely choppy and we got all these random bullish candles, it was pretty much a very traditional downtrending market, a very easy and textbook downtrend, right? And I'll explain why. So if you pay attention to the first high that we put in here and then the second one, what you might notice is that this one didn't go above the first one, right? And it actually continues like that throughout this entire downtrend. So none of the highs that we put in sweeps one another. So a very traditional downtrending market in that sense, right? And so that's a pattern within itself. Now, the second pattern I noticed was the fact that literally every reversal took place in premium of the range. So here's what happened. The market sells off, right? It visits a premium, then it continues the downtrend. Same thing here, premium, downtrend. Same thing here, premium, downtrend. And it was literally like that, textbook. And so in case you don't know what that means, it essentially means equilibrium is a fancier word for the middle point of the range. So this right here, anything above that is considered a premium. That's where you want to be selling. Anything below it is a discount. That's what you want to be buying. Okay, so the exact same thing happened here, right? The market ran up on an hourly time frame, dipped into premium, and I, immediately saw the same pattern towards the downside, right? So I zoomed into a 1 hour time frame here, coming into the market this morning, and I immediately noticed two things, right? So when I originally came into the market, which was about, right here as we had retested the VWAP here for the second time. That's what the blue line is. It is a VWAP, one of my absolute favorite indicators for intraday trading. Anyway, what happened was the market ran up, retested the VWAP once, and I got no follow through beyond that, right? We saw no volume above that VWAP, right? Then I was like, okay, well, we'll see what happens here. Then we got another retest where the same thing happened. No volume to the upside. In fact, we got it to the downside, right? And that immediately tells me that buyers have trouble pushing price above the VWAP, but sellers have no issues in pushing it down lower. And so sellers are still in control, even on a 1 minute time frame, right? Because it's very clear on an hourly time frame, but it's these small patterns that you want to look for on an intraday time frame. So even up here, right, we saw the exact same pattern. So this was very, very early here today. I was not in the market at this time, but here it is. So we retested the VWAP once, failed. Tried again, right? No volume above it, right? Third time, no volume, and then an immense sell-off, right? So I was pretty much expecting that exact same thing to happen here. And I got exactly what I wanted because we came up for a third time and a third retest of this, right? And here's what happened. We retested it, and I immediately saw displacement in the opposite direction. And that was exactly what I was hoping for because I can now confidently enter this trade because I've seen this pattern twice today. Why? Right? One time all the way up here and another time right here. So I was pretty much, betting on the exact same thing here. The market started to sell off completely and I entered in a very aggressive manner, okay? This is one of my favorite models, okay? Now, I teach these within my free community all the time. So if you want to check out our community, well, then feel free to check out the link down below. We'd love to have you. Anyway, this is a very aggressive way of trading. And there's one reason why I decided to trade this aggressively, and I'll get right into it. So this is a swing low. Now, a swing low within a market is pretty much when you have 3 candlesticks, right? So we have 1, 2, and 3, and the one in the middle is the lowest of the 3, right? That makes it a swing low. Now, in this case, it was also a down close candle, right? A bearish candle. And so whenever we get a candle closure below that, which was this massive candle you're looking at here, well, then that classifies this as a market structure shift, right? So a shift in short-term sentiment, break of structure, whatever, people have hundreds of names for this nowadays. Anyway, you can also draw it like this because it also becomes what we call a breaker block, right? And so the idea here is simple. The market comes down, validates the breaker block by closing here, then it comes back up, retested that breaker block, and then, sells off. That's the whole idea here. Now, I entered as soon as this candle validated the market structure shift. Why did I do that? Well, have a look at the price action this week. We have just been getting crazy sell-offs. I have never been left behind as much as I have this week. Now, luckily, that's a lot better than losing the entire week. But still, it's very frustrating whenever you have, a solid entry, you're waiting, but then all you're getting are these crazy moves where there's just no way you can participate, right? Same thing here, right? Same thing here. And so I expected the exact same thing to happen. The market was not going to give me a chance to get filled. And so what I did was just, enter as soon as we closed and take, advantage of that momentum that I'm literally seeing right now. And so that's what I did. And for me, it worked out. But as you guys can see, the only time where I decide to do this, my original entry would have worked perfectly. And that's typical, right? Now, I will say this, though. As you guys can see, coming right into this trade, it was looking great from the beginning. I did have a little bit of a pullback here, nothing to worry about. And then my trade was immediately validated by this massive candle that you're looking at here, right? And I was thinking, wow, what a stress-free trade, beautiful. But then, this happened. We started coming right back towards my entry. And listen, I have been teaching people how to do this for a living for years, right? I've taken people from nothing to doing this full time. That has been my primary thing for years. And when you do that, well, then you notice a lot of patterns between different people. And this is one of the, most common patterns that I see on a daily basis between newer or even experienced traders. They get so cocky in the beginning when it looks like this because it's easy, right? As soon as it gets hard, when it starts going against them, that's when they start second guessing their system, right? They start doubting themselves. They start doubting their system and everything becomes a mess. And what they'll typically do is either they'll close the trade out at break even or even in a small loss, right? Now, when you've been trading for damn near a decade at this point, well, then you know a trick or two. And the simplest way to combat this is simply to lean back and have faith within your system, right? Because in my opinion, once you start messing up your trade management like this, it's simply because you don't understand the nature of the market. As a trader, we have control of essentially nothing. We control the amount of risk that we put on, when we enter and when we exit. Anything beyond that is completely out of our control, right? And so whether the market goes up, down, or sideways, I have no saying in, right? The market, in that sense, is entirely random. That's why we have systems that are based on probabilities, right? Now, what's important here, and one way to combat this, is again to develop faith within your system, but also to have a serious reason behind your stop, your partials, and your take profit. You see, another problem I see so many traders make is that they have all the reasoning in the world to enter their trade. For example, here, right? That's what their system is for. It tells them exactly when and where they need to enter their trade. But what it doesn't do is tell them where to put their stop and where to put their take profit. Because those two need, just as much reasoning as the entry itself, right? And when you have the reasoning behind everything, it becomes much easier to just lean back and have faith in your system. So let me explain. For example, in this trade, the reason why my stop loss was here was because if I, draw my fib from the high down to the low at that time, and I now change it to the optimal trade entry, you can see that I made sure to include at least one zone in the optimal trade entry. And thank God for that, because have a look at this. The market ran up, retested the first of the three, and then immediately sold off right into my take profit. Right? And I've been doing this for so long now that I understand that there's a chance that it's going to come up here and reverse. So I don't want to do this, right? Because I've learned from my mistakes, and this has hurt me in the past, right? So I at least include one of these three zones. Okay, now if we come all the way up here and start, touching the third one up here, I'll admit that I was wrong. I timed the market wrong, and I'll get out. Right? And that's all your stop loss needs to do. It essentially needs to invalidate your idea. Once your idea or timing or whatever has been invalidated, well, then you can get out and no sweat about it. Same thing with your take profit and your break even. A lot of people ask me, Malik, how do you know when to go break even? How do you know when to take your profit? Well, let me explain. If I now do the same thing here, draw it from the low all the way up to the high, you can see that this gap here was in the middle of the optimal trade entry. In fact, at the low end, right? And so I am going to take my break even and partial there. Why? In this case, I didn't actually take a partial, but normally I take a partial. Why? Because this is a highly, probable reversal area. So what I do is I look at my trade and I figure out, okay, where within this trade is the highest, possibility that this is going to go against me. And it's, in that exact spot that I'm going to go break even and I'm going to take a partial. And, given in this trade, it was the gap down here. And you might say, well, why not this one up here? That one is also, in optimal trade entry. Well, if I do this, that would mean I would have to go break even at 0.65 R in profit. I'm just not going to do that because I put myself at a disadvantage. I don't let my trade, actually play out. I don't let the probabilities work out, right? But if I now go all the way down here, well, then I do. And thank God for that, because have a look at this. We got super close to my break even. And had I done that, I would have made no money on this trade, right? But because I have systems around everything that I do, well, then I managed to make a profit of about $18,000. And again, that was literally the entire trade. So pretty much, a pattern trade here, just paying attention to what price has done throughout the week and then anticipating it's going to do the exact same thing, right? Because whether you like it or not, a market is often going to repeat what it's done before. And when I've seen this pattern twice today, right? I saw it up here and I saw it here. You best believe that I'm going to take advantage of it whenever I can, because in my opinion, that puts me on the side of the probabilities, which is my entire job as a trader. So again, if there's one takeaway from this video, let it be that as a trader, you have control of so little. So the things that you do control, you better systemize. Everything that you can't systemize, do it, okay? Because that is exactly what's going to allow you to become profitable and consistently profitable, most importantly of all. So thank you guys for watching this video. Again, not the healthiest of markets. Very, very interesting here in a higher time frame. Very hard to trade. And again, that's why patience is so important. So thank you for watching, and I will see you when the next trade appears.